right, we're back with Sex 101. This is my favorite time of week. I get to hang out with Stormy, and I tell everybody, I talk about it on my podcast, It's All Over podcast, that you are the most prepared, most fun possible co-host I've ever worked with in my life. Like, I mean, it is
Thank
wild.
you.
It is wild. And I'm not, I always give you compliments, but I'm being serious.
Thank you. Well, I'm laughing because it's like prepared is a nice way to put it. I would say like slightly neurotically prepared might be like a little better. It's just
No,
my
no, no, no.
personality. I love the research. So it's
Yeah.
totally my nerdy personality.
No, I love it because I am a fly by the night person. I work very well in improv situations, fixing this, doing this, moving here. And I just love it. How much you care, like with our listener questions, with the topics that we talk about, you just really do deeply care. And so I just think it's really awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks. And
I'm not
I want to say I say this every episode, like they they move me so deeply because they're so vulnerable. They're so real. They're
yeah.
so, about change and being brave to take that step. So I keep them coming. Anyone listening, or watching, like they're amazing. And this is how we change our sex life. This is how we change our lives, by
Yeah.
being vulnerable, by being brave, by asking the questions. So it's really, really impactful to me.
Totally. All right. So let's get into it. So this week I want to talk to you specifically. So this is interesting. So I have been seeing this really amazing woman, and we've been seeing each other, and this is so funny to me because I'm the person that grew up extremely conservative Christian in the deep South, and she grew
Mhm.
up in around Chicago, blue state, way more aware of the whole world.
Mhm.
Where I grew up, we didn't know much about the whole world. You know what I mean? We just didn't know, and but I thought it was very interesting because like I own a sex toy company, Marriage Supply, and she had never used a sex toy in her whole life, and I was like,
Wow.
whoa. And
Uh-huh.
we were talking about them, and one of the things she said was, well, I never used one, and part of me, standoffish from it because what if I started relying on that too much? Like
Mhm.
what if that became the thing that, gave me orgasms or got me off, and then my partner, or whoever it might be, uh I couldn't be present with them as much because I was thinking, oh, well, the only way I can get off. So I wanted, you and I talked before, but I think it'd be really good to talk about that idea of what are some of the sex toy myths that people experience? Because I think a lot of men sometimes think, uh-oh, it's replacing me. A sex toy,
Mhm. Mhm.
I won't be able to compete with that thing because it vibrates and it might be bigger or better than me. And then
Uh-huh.
maybe ladies oftentimes think that, oh, if I use this toy, well, it's going to fulfill me more than my partner could. Right.
Yeah, totally. I think you just nailed two of the very common sex toy myths, right? So the sex toy addiction myth, like the woman or man, but often the woman believing that she's going to get addicted to her, let's just say her vibrator. And then you mentioned that, men feeling intimidated, that they're going to be replaced, that she's going to prefer their like big pulsating, cock to my cock, right?
Right.
And so it's really important to debunk those myths because, well, they are myths, and we'll get into that more. But I think it's also like it 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 keeps people from exploring sex toys, and I am a huge fan of sex toys. I recommend them with my clients. I like them personally. They it's really like I always say, like think of a sex toy as a team player, right? It's not a replacement. It's not a human. It's a team player. And when you look at the pleasure gap that exists between penis bodied persons and vulva bodied persons, there is a huge gap, right? Just the anatomy of arousal. And so sex toys can be an incredible way to bridge that gap. And for all of you women out there listening, you know, a lot of us women can relate to faking it, right? We fake the big O, we fake our orgasm. maybe to like just end the session, maybe to like make our partner not feel bad, maybe to make us feel better, whatever it is, the reasons for faking it. Sex toys can help it so that you don't have to fake it. So I think that's like an important thing, right? And I'm not a fan. Not a, I have been there. I have faked many orgasms. I don't anymore in the last 10 years of my life because of my own work there, right? It's
Yeah.
not real. And it also creates a pattern in your nervous system that can keep you from orgasm. So, long-winded way of saying like that it is not possible for women to get physiologically or psychologically addicted to your vibrator.
Did you get good
The
at it? Like when
Oh,
you
I was
faked
like, I was so good. Like Harry when Harry met Sally level good.
it? You were like impressing yourself. You're like,
Yeah, like I was like
nailed it.
convincing myself totally.
You need to
But
try out for
it's
local
so funny.
theater.
Like, well, there was always a part of me that I mean, I'm a people pleaser in recovery. So my reason was often to like not let my partner feel badly and
Right.
like, okay, that's probably enough. He's probably bored. Let's just end it already. And all of that is totally my shit, right? It was my shit. And so but yes, I mean, and I was laughing. I was talking to a friend. He's like, I've never been with a woman that faked it. I was like, or I've never been a woman with a woman that didn't orgasm. I was like, it's called faking it. He's like, no way. And I was like, oh yes, way. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
So I mean, I just think it's important that women know that it's not possible to become addicted to your vibe. The other myths of like you're gonna I could desensitize my clitoris, right? And I'm only gonna be able to orgasm with like intense direct
Jackhammer.
vibration.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also not true. Like our tissues don't get desensitized like that. If you using a high intensity vibrator on the clitoris, you might have some temporary desensitization, but it will come back. Right? Take a hiatus, take a vibrator break. Um, but you're not going to desensitize or become dependent on it. What it might show you is the pleasure gap that's happening if you're having partnered sex. And that gives you a great place to like talk to your partner, talk about increasing foreplay, talk about female focused pleasure to kind of bridge that gap between when men often ejaculate and women's orgasm. There is often a whole bunch of minutes gap.
Yeah.
So sex toys can be a great way to bridge that gap. And so, I think your other point about the 2017 study that talked about one of the reason that men are intimidated by sex toys can be this masculine achievement thing, right? Like it is somehow your duty or responsibility as the man to make me orgasm. But that's really off like putting my pleasure outside of myself, right? Like I'm actually fully responsible for my own pleasure and my own orgasm, not my partner. And so it's like it kind of gets into this, I'm responsible for my own pleasure. I want to be able to communicate with my partner about what brings me great pleasure. But just handing over my pleasure to him is really this kind of like a little bit of patriarchal stuff, right? Like my man's responsible for my orgasm. It's like, no, fuck that. I'm responsible for my orgasm. And I might invite my man in to enjoy it with me, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about that intimidation piece.
Yeah. I love that. Owning your orgasm and owning your pleasure does not exclude the person that you're experiencing, right? Like that's what
Yeah.
I mean, I'm learning that today. Like I think so many people part of me thinks it might be because of porn, and I might be wrong about this, but porn shows you the people that are like, I mean, the same way as football shows you the greatest athletes. Porn
Hmm.
really are they are porn actors, and they
Hmm.
are doing everything they can to present the best possible to me, at least.
Totally.
I mean, it's not that way, and there are so many more ways to find pleasure. And I think a lot of times people think, "Oh, well, I have to be the best lover, or else I fail." And and,
Mm.
and I don't. I'm learning more and more today, and at this stage of my life, that and at this stage of my life, I'm learning that be who you are, and that's okay. Because
Mhm.
like if you're trying to be the best lover, if you're trying to be the hottest sexual partner, if you're trying to only help your partner achieve orgasm, then most likely it's not gonna be connected as much. Like it
Totally. Yeah.
right?
I mean, and it's a beautiful thing that I mean, I would say a lot of my male clients and a lot of just the men I surround myself in want to be amazing lovers. And that's an awesome thing. But you're still not responsible for my orgasm. Like your desire to
Right,
be an amazing lover does not make you responsible for my orgasm, right?
right.
And I say that like with so much love and compassion, but with conviction, especially when I'm working with my couples clients. Like you got to take autonomy and sovereignty and responsibility for your pleasure. And sex toys can totally help to bridge any gaps, right? Because there is a gap of physiologic arousal between men and women, but there's also everyone's different, right? What turns me on is different than what turns on the next woman and turns on the next woman, right? So really getting and I think sex toys can get a bum rap. They can be like an intimidation factor, like we just said for men, of like it's going to replace me. But your vibrator does not mean people want intimacy, connection, and passion. You're not going to get that. I don't care how good your vibrator is. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to replace your partner. And but it can be great for solo pleasure. It can be great for partnered sex. I was reading that, what it's just some facts on it. 1 in 10 men use a vibrator. Okay, this is not with a woman. And that women in relationships are more likely to use a vibrator than single women. I thought that was an interesting,
It is interesting.
fact. Yeah, and that I think that and 50% of Americans use a vibrator and have in the last month. Like that's a lot of people using sex toys, but vibrator is the number one selling sex toy. So a genre of sex toy, but a lot of people are using them, right? And so I think, I mean, it was a $12.6 billion annual sales in 2021, the sex toy industry. Like it's such a
Yeah.
huge industry.
Yeah, 100%. I think too, I I think when you I've heard that so much just with the men I've worked with, they wanna be great lovers. But
Hmm.
you also have to take a step back and realize that is about you in a way, not always, but it can be about you and your ego. I wanna be known as a great lover. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
the, Cyrano de Bergerac or,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, like, you just want to be known as a great lover. That's like a notch in your belt. And that doesn't help anybody really because at any moment, anytime, like if you are with a partner, you're going to have sex over the course of the relationship. And sometimes it won't be that good. It just, what I mean? Some days, you might be great at your job, but some days you're bad at it. Or,
Yeah,
whatever,
totally.
whatever you're interested in, some days you won't be at your best. And so it's not always going to be that you are the greatest lover in the world. But if you can be present and go, I just want to experience pleasure with my partner and hopefully they experience pleasure and allow them to experience pleasure the way they want. I think it opens up so many more doors. Like for so long,
Totally.
yeah, for so long. I mean, I mean, I'll even be honest about myself. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be a great lover. I wanted to pleasure my ex in a way that she just is like, oh man, I'm so into him or whatever. But
Hmm.
those are just my thoughts. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that didn't that might not have had anything to do with her. Like and now I see that. I wish I would have seen it way earlier. But in lots of ways, that was about me going, oh, if I'm a great lover, then then she'll be happy. But that doesn't
Yeah,
that
totally.
but I don't believe that way anymore. Now I think, wait a minute, we are experiencing this together the same way as if I mean I've been with people before on a date night where we saw an awesome theater experience where we both felt something and it was amazing. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that didn't have it didn't have anything to do with just me. And so I think if you can forget about yourself a little bit and go, wait a minute, I do want to experience pleasure. I want them to experience pleasure, but
Totally.
like you said, it's not my responsibility. When I start
Mm-mm.
putting responsibility on it or ownership, then that's about me. And then it starts
Yeah,
to change.
absolutely. I think that's that masculine achievement piece. And it's also what starts to become performance pressure, right?
Yeah.
And pressure is a pleasure buster, right? So to your point, I mean, I believe to be a great lover, it takes presence, it takes curiosity. I believe it takes breath. And it takes like exploring and being willing to like laugh. And I mean, like I always say, like if you're having sex with somebody, it's like there's a lot of awkward shit that goes on. And so like being able
Yes.
to laugh about it, and being able to be like, well, that didn't work,
That didn't work. Right.
okay, and to giggle about it, to not be so goddamn serious about it because it's sex. It's meant to be amazing and playful and fun and orgasmic and connect you to God. I mean, there's all these kinds of sex that you can have out there. But I think the presence and slowing down and being curious about yourself and your own pleasure, your own orgasm, and also about your partners. And that is really, I believe, some of the keys to being a fabulous lover.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And so toys can only, if you think of it as only enhances, it's not competition. It just enhances what could be.
Totally.
And the toy is an extension of you, the same way as your phone is, or you have tons of technology that's an extension of you now. A toy
Yeah.
is just an extension
Well
of you, right?
said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the other myths, right? That you're only using toys if you're struggling. If you're a couple, that you're only using sex toys if you're struggling in the bedroom. It's totally bullshit. It's actually like shown that couples that have the best sex lives and report the most sexual satisfaction use toys. Explore with toys, right? There's a playfulness, there's an
Yeah.
exploration, there's a novelty, right? Novelty is the spice of life, right? So I think that's another, myth that kind of leads to. We already talked about replacing your partner and desensitizing, but I think those are just some of the really common myths. I mean, also another one is that if women need a vibrator, if they something is wrong, if they need a vibrator to orgasm, but that is not true, right? Again, back to the pleasure gap, right? Back to the woman female anatomy of arousal. Many women need that, right? And so it's again, these myths keep us small. They keep us stuck. They came from somewhere. I mean, whatever your stance is on it, like there's an element of control. It's like, oh, don't go there, don't explore there. Coming down from whether it's family of origin or whatever religious messaging or just our own shame around sex. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I say all the time, it's like the one subject, sex is the one subject that we are hyper obsessed and hyper repressed about. And it's the same with the sex toys. It's like, are they good? Are they bad? Will you become addicted? Will they replace me? It's like, so really go have your own experience with it, and there's so many toys out there. There's partnered toys. There's toys for his pleasure, toys for her pleasure, toys for both pleasure. There's anal toys. There's kink. I mean, I also read something today that after 50 Shades of Grey, like the bondage toys industry went up like I think it was
Yeah.
like sixfold or something.
Yeah.
And like and people are like all of a sudden now like I want to try handcuffs and I want to try rope. I mean, toys is a really broad, like, so even like when we think toys, most people think dildos and vibrators, and if you look at the top toys, it is dildos, it is vibrators, it is lube, it is bondage things, and it's anal toys, right? All the things that have a bit of taboo, which is lovely to bring into the bedroom, but you don't have to like go full out 50 Shades of Grey. Like you could like maybe try a blindfold, that would be
Yeah.
considered a toy. That would be considered something outside of your genitals.
Yeah. And when you try those things, it's okay to go, that didn't work. I didn't like that. That's totally good.
Totally.
You know
I
what
mean, and I'm sure personally too. Sometimes if you're trying a new toy, you're like, wait, where's the on button? And shit, that's vibrating too much. And like, oh shit, I didn't charge it long enough and it dies in the middle.
That died. I was feeling really good.
That's a funny one. But there's all of these things that can, I mean, right? They have moving parts, right? Like, like where the hell's the charger? I mean, I'm sure there's hilarious memes about like where your vibrator's out of charge, but to your point about being able to laugh about it, and be like, whoa, that was way too much. I mean, I've tried toys where I just start laughing hilariously. Like it's just too much. I just start laughing.
Right. And that is such a good thing because that's what you do with other stuff. Like sex doesn't have to be so secluded and separated from everything else. Like you should laugh sometimes. In fact, most of the times whenever I've laughed during sex, it ended up being just the most fun.
Totally.
Right? I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, there are tons of times where it's amazing, where it's super passionate and serious, and you're having a great time. But if you can laugh during sex, or you're trying a new toy, the same way as if you go out to a meal and you go, "Man, I did not like those Brussels sprouts," or whatever, whatever. That's totally. You don't feel this huge obligation, or like I'm screwing up, or I'm messed up, or mentally, physically I'm messed up. You don't have to feel that way. Like sex toys are just, like we were saying earlier, just an extension, just to try. And if you love it, great. If you don't, that's totally okay too.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. All right. Are there any other myths that you got going on, or
No,
is that
I think we covered them
we hit
all.
them all?
I thought that was such an interesting fact that women in relationships are more likely to use toys than women
I
who are
agree.
single. So,
I,
mhm.
I wonder about that. I do think that men are starting to become more aware of, wait a minute, a sex toy isn't my competitor. It is
Right.
something that I use, and because, like, to me, and I hope men out there and women as well hear this and can feel this way as well. If you can be with somebody while they're orgasming, however they are orgasming, that is a very vulnerable. Most likely
Mhm.
they're naked, a very vulnerable. They're making maybe a funny face or a face they don't
Mhm.
normally make in public,
Mhm.
and you get to be there and share that with them. That's a beautiful moment, and it
Oh,
can,
I love that.
right, like
Totally. I
that.
agree.
It really is like however that happens. If you get to be there for that
Mhm.
means you're welcome with them. You are
Yeah,
well.
it's very
You're in a
sacred.
circle
Mhm.
that they don't let a lot of
Mhm.
people in. So
Totally.
don't miss out on that. Don't make it about
Yeah.
you. Like that is really special for sure.
That's so true. The French call orgasm le petit mort. Of course, they have a sexy way of saying it. I love the French,
Yeah.
but it means the little death, right? Because in our moments of orgasm, right, they are only moments. There is a death of ego. There's a dissolution of
Yeah.
self, right? There's a lack of awareness of where I end and my partner begins, right? There can be like bending of time phenomenon, right? Like the whole
Yeah.
world ceases to exist, right? To your point, it is such a sacred, vulnerable, intimate thing to share with another person, and that level of adoration for that is different. It's a different way of relating, right? And I always joke that I think all of our world leaders should only be able to make decisions after a really great orgasm, because we would have like a lot more peace in the
The
world.
world
We
would be
really
so much
just
better.
would. I'm not sure how you'd regulate that, but
Right. Yeah. How do you put that into practice?
no, could get messy. No
Yeah.
pun
Yeah.
intended.
Joe Biden before you. All right. Before
Totally.
we get to our listener questions, since we're talking about sex toys, I thought we'd go ahead and do Stump Stormy this week. And I wanted to ask you, okay, the average woman in America buys her first sex toy by what age? What do you think?
Oh, um, first sex toy, American woman. I'm going with 21.
Oh, wow. Good guess. That was a very good guess. 23.
Okay.
20.
It's
That
so
was
funny.
a,
23 is actually what popped in my head, but I was like, that's too old.
yeah. No,
That's
no, you
funny.
were right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You were all over it. Yeah, for sure. It says she usually buys it for herself, not as a gift, and for the purpose of spicing up her sex life. And that was from the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy. I thought that was really interesting because uh, I wanted to look up men, but I think men are way later or don't buy it unless they're in a relationship only. It seems like often.
I'm not sure on the stats, and I'm not.
Really?
I mean, I saw that in this research article I was reading today. 1 in 10 men use a vibrator, and this is actually not. They're not talking about on a woman. So I think we're getting more sex positive, right, as a culture, and so men are willing to explore, right? Because why is vibration just for my clitoris? Like, why there's other parts on the male anatomy that feel vibration feels really good on, like for
Right.
example the external prostate, like the perineum, right? It can feel
Yep.
really great to have vibration there. So I think we're getting more, exploratory in that. One little random fact I just saw that I wrote down is, okay, I'm doing a stump Toby. So
Okay.
the first electric vibrator, what year?
Ooh, I don't know. I want to say later, like 1976.
Oh, that's close at all.
What?
1880.
I was almost 100 years old. Well, that's not. Wow. 1880?
It was like used like originally it was the vibrator was developed to control. This is for real female hysteria. You're like, what? You're like, how
Yeah.
about we're just giving her a good orgasm? But okay, So I thought that was an interesting. And the first dildo dates back 28,000 years ago.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Man, so
Kind of
people,
funny.
yeah, yeah. People are like, "Hey, we need a little extra here." Yeah. But that's good. I mean, those things are good. I mean, we use other things in our whole life. You know what I mean? Like we are constantly
Totally.
using other instruments to help us in our life, tools. And so it's in our sex life that seems, like it should be totally welcome as well. I can understand why sometimes I do understand that, man. I mean, because one of the biggest questions is my penis big enough? Like, will I be able to pleasure a lady or whatever? So I can understand when you bring in this vibrating thing that might be bigger than you, it can seem intimidating. But for the most part, I mean, sometimes, I mean, we're talking fairly general here, but for the most part, that toy is for you both. It's
Yeah.
it's yeah, right. I mean, it might
Yeah,
be pleasuring
totally.
your
And I think
partner,
if,
but it's for you both.
yeah, exactly. If you think of it, like you said, as a team player or as an accessory, and for the both of you, and you choosing a toy based on mutual pleasure, because there's tons of those out there,
Yep.
and if that's really going to hinder your letting go into the experience of a toy because let's say the vibrator is bigger than your penis,
Yeah.
um, then choose a small one. Like they literally call it the
Right.
magic bullet for a reason. Like it's tiny and it's very effective, right?
Right.
So if that's gonna allow you to relax more into it, then don't start with the huge, pulsating red rabbit. Like it's
Right.
like you could. That's the thing about it. You get to like either explore that on your own and bring that to a partner, which can be a fun thing, or explore it together.
Yep. And just so everybody knows too, the clitoris is at the very front, and there's so many nerve endings at the very front of the vagina. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
don't you just let that stuff go. Like, just be present.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm talking to myself too. We all feel uncomfortable about our bodies sometimes, but
Well, I mean,
it,
and also I'm gonna say like right, we talked about one of our, I think it was called the magic clit, or one of our episodes where the clitoris actually like goes into the labia, it goes
yeah,
extends into the labia and even up higher. So vibration on the labia can be a really great way to stimulate other parts of the clitoris that aren't the part showing, right?
right.
And so it's a great way, for sure, and it's a really common way to use a vibrator on a female bodied person.
Yeah. And if you don't believe it, guys, try a vibrator on your penis and balls. You'll lose your mind. It feels amazing. Yeah. So give it a shot too. You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
give it a shot too. All right, let's get to listener questions here. All right. So, first listener question. Uh, my husband always prefers to have sex in the morning. I enjoy it then too, but my preference is at night after we have talked about our day and connected a little. I do think he enjoys it more in the morning, so that makes it uh, better and more fun. But also, I want to let him know I do want to do it in the evening a little bit more. I don't want to hurt his feelings or only get my way. And this is from Morning Wood.
So I mean, what comes to my mind first was I believe it's Cameron Diaz who said, "What's the best time of day for sex?" And she says, "Anytime it's sex," right? So it made me
Yeah.
just popped in my mind because we can get really stuck into, and it's a comment. By the way, this person asking this question, this is common, right? I read a 2015 study that said this was like 700 men, 700 couples, that men prefer sex in the morning and that women prefer sex in the evening. And that's that, but you might be out there listening, be like, wait, I'm exactly opposite. I'm a man and I always want to have sex at night, right? So it's the individual like preference, but absolutely to the listener's question about communicating about it, like, so just to like understand a little bit about it, like we have higher testosterone and higher estrogen in the morning, typically. So that might be one reason why your partner, male or female, prefer sex in the morning. Okay, and then another important cycle for women is our menstrual cycle if you are still menstruating, because you're actually going to less about the time of day and more about the time of your cycle, the time of your month, right? So the first half of your cycle, you're going to be more frisky, wanting to have sex more than the second half, right? Um, Another thing is we tend to have more energy in the morning, right? We just hopefully got decent sleep. We haven't had a stressful day. We haven't had our boss yelling at us or the kids yelling at whatever it might
Yeah.
be. So we tend to have more energy. Um, and one of the things that can work against morning sex is that is body image, right? Like, oh, my hair is a mess. I've got morning breath.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, I forgot to brush my teeth last night, right? You're like farting in bed, whatever might be going on, right? So there can be that works against morning sex. So whatever it is for you, to the listener's question, communicate that to your partner. Share with them. Like you can literally be. I mean, I've had people be like, I don't want to have sex in the morning. I'm so nervous about morning breath. And to me, I was like, do they even have morning breath? Like I didn't notice, but they knew that they noticed and they were self conscious about it, and it kept them so that like what we figured out was like he got up and brushed his teeth, like before we because then he was able to relax more. So there's always a way, but the communication, and I know I say this with almost every question because it's so important, the communication is key. You cannot read your partner's mind. They cannot read yours. And when we make assumptions, we are almost always some degree of inaccurate, some degree of wrong, right? So have the questions, ask the questions. Why is it that you prefer sex at night, right? Why is it that you prefer sex in the morning? And then finding out, also like try an afternoon delight if you can. That's a fun one to try. Like see what that feels like for the two of you, right? We don't have to just have sex in morning or night, right? I'm not saying we can just willy nilly. It'd be great if we can have sex whenever we want, but that's
Yeah.
not the reality for most people. But maybe on a weekend it is, or maybe while the kids are napping if you have young kids, like so changing up the time of day. But I think really the communication on that one is key. And then also understand that we have different cycles that our body responds to.
Yeah, 100%. I think this listener, I think the main thing, like you said, is just talk about it and do both. Like if it, if one person prefers it this time and another person prefers it this time, do it because it can work in both time frames for sure.
Totally.
And when you mix it up a little bit, it gets more fun. Like it really does. Like
Hmm.
if you get into a routine, sometimes it can get a little dull, or even if it's not dull, it can feel like, oh well, we this is just scheduled. It's not spontaneous or romantic. But I think if you mix it up a little bit and go, oh, you know what, it's only 2 p.m. What if we did it now? And then that way we can watch,
Afternoon delight.
yeah, I know. Now tonight at 8 p.m. we can watch HGTV and be done. That sounds pretty fun too, right?
Totally.
Yeah, let's knock this out at 2 p.m. 8 p.m. tonight when we're laying in bed, 9 p.m. We're good. So
Pizza and HGTV.
right, exactly, 100%.
With extra garlic. The
Yeah,
pizza.
that'll contribute to that morning breath tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. My wife. Next question. My wife and I are trying new things and being a little more adventurous sexually. I'm wanting to surprise her with our first sex toy. Should I stay away from a dildo or a vibrator that is bigger than me? This is kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier. I need a woman's perspective. Sorry, Toby. And this comes from, is bigger always better?
So first of all, I totally applaud you and your lovely wife for being more adventuresome sexually, right? That orientation is huge. That will bring so much passion and spice into or back into your partnership. So that's amazing. And I love that you want to surprise her with it. So, I think if that's part of what you're wanting is the surprise piece, you're gonna just take a stab at it. Like try to imagine, do you imagine that she'd want vibrating, right? Do you imagine that she'd want non-vibrating, like so vibrator dildo? Definitely include a good lube when you're picking your sex toy. So find a lube you like and use it. Um, Lube helps sex toys to be more pleasurable. Lube helps sex to be more pleasurable too. So, vibrating, non-vibrating. Are you looking for her pleasure or couple's pleasure? So these would be questions you ask yourself when you're looking at sex toy shops or sites, right? If you're going to go into a sex store. So you can also ask the person who works in the sex store, right? So there are toys that are for couple's pleasure. There are toys that are more designed for her pleasure. And then do you imagine if it's a first toy, I would say think of something more external. Like it doesn't have to be huge and go inside, right? Like that can be like a little bit like, a lot for all at once. So vibrating on the outside, on the vulva, on the labia, right? On the clitoris, but don't go right for the clitoris. Like there's so many other places, right? And then just starting slow, right? So and wrap it up fun and make it a part of your fun, playful date night. Like you're kind of in this like fun exploring thing. And then give her the permission to be like, that's not it for me, right? Like I didn't like that, or I want something bigger or whatever, like whatever it might be. So being willing to, like Toby was saying, being willing to laugh. But I think it's beautiful and sexy and playful. You want to surprise her with it. So wrap it up nice and sexy and have it be part of your fun date night.
And it's only one component of having sex too, right? Like it, even if you use a sex toy that's bigger than you, than your penis, it's not like then it's forever. Your penis doesn't do anything anymore, right?
Totally. Yeah,
Right. Your penis
absolutely.
still works in the vagina, and it feels good. Your
Right. And
right.
yes, well, so and bigger is not always better for real, but also you're the like plastic penis, silicone penis you might be using does not have you attached to it. Does not have the
Yeah.
man she loves attached to it, right? You might be
Yeah.
using it. But like it's not going, you're not, it is not going to replace you, right? We again, we want connection. We are literally wired for connection. We do not get that from our sex toy. But again, if that's going to keep you from being in the experience, the example I gave before, then go with something smaller, sleeker. There's literally like I actually have a necklace that's so cool from Crave in LA that is like this beautiful necklace I get so many compliments on. It's a vibrator. It's a tiny little silver vibrator. It is really awkward when my boss was like, "I love your necklace." I was like, "Thank you."
Of course, you'd have a vibrator necklace.
Of course, I mean, of course, right? And as
Surprise!
much as
Yeah.
I don't work in a setting where that would be
Yeah.
like so okay, but
Right.
it was, my point is that like bigger is not necessarily better, and definitely in sex toys, bigger is not necessarily better.
Yep. 100%. All right. Last question. Love the show. My wife struggles to have orgasms. We've tried different positions, toys, and oral sex as well. She likes having sex and never complains about not having one. And we do have sex regularly, and it is great. She says she enjoys it even without the orgasm. But I know if she could orgasm, it would be so much better. Any tips, special moves, or things we could try that could help her achieve orgasm? And this comes from Make Them Legs Shake.
I love the question. So just to normalize it, and this is actually like for most men that I've shared this with, this is a pretty shocking statistic. Back to the whole faking orgasms thing that so many women do, but only 25 to 30% of women um, climax from penetration alone. So only 25, depending on who you're reading, sometimes it's as low as 20%, but 20 to 30, let's just say, percent of women can orgasm from penetration alone, right? So that means 60 to 70% don't from penetration alone. Okay. And then there's a large percentage of women that never orgasm. And that there is nothing wrong. There is nothing broken. And I love that your wife still enjoys sex and tells you she enjoys sex. That sounds like really great communication because we can be very, very orgasm focused, right? It's like the
Yeah.
destination, but you can miss the whole journey. And it sounds amazing that your wife and you enjoy the journey, even if she's not orgasming. But what I would say is she's capable of orgasming. There are very, very, very few cases where someone's incapable of orgasming. She just hasn't accessed that part of her. And I love your curiosity to help her, to assist her, to encourage her. That's awesome. But make sure she knows there's nothing wrong with her. Nothing is broken, right? It's also very common that a woman can't orgasm with penetration alone. Again, back to why sex toys can be so helpful. So, but to answer your question about any tips to help, I would also, if you feel comfortable and she feels comfortable, encourage her to, get curious. Like, does she or can she orgasm in self pleasure when she's masturbating? Can she able to reach orgasm then? And that's not an insult to you as a lover. Okay, maybe she's using a toy, maybe she's putting more stimulation on her clitoris, right? So if you're open to it and she's open to it, have that conversation. If she's not orgasming with self pleasure, encourage her, maybe buy her a toy, encourage her to explore that on her own because it might take off some of the pressure that she may feel to experience an orgasm with you, which is a beautiful thing, right? You guys want to
Yeah.
share that together. So, um, but as far as in your partnership, when you're in your sexy time together, I would say triple the foreplay. Right? That's a really amazing tool. Back to the pleasure gap of male and female anatomy of arousal. Triple the length of foreplay. and make the foreplay really she focused, right? So you have more than a penis, right? You have hands and you have lips and you have a tongue, right? You have toys, right? So really triple or quadruple the length of our foreplay, the length of your foreplay. Okay, that might help to get her closer to orgasm, to increase her pleasure more towards her point of orgasm. So, and then, as much as you cannot keep, it's ironic, right? We're talking about orgasm, but you're not going to focus on orgasm. You're going to focus on increasing pleasure. Okay. And the orgasm is just the frosting on the cake. And then the other thing is, and I believe it's Esther Perel, who I love, who said that foreplay for the woman starts the day before, right? So many women really want that emotional connection. They want the emotional intimacy as much as the physical intimacy. So really connect with her. Maybe you go out on a date or you send her a sexy text in the day. That emotional connection and increasing that might help her to settle more into her pleasure. And then anatomically, right, the clitoris and the G spot are two spots that tend to be really high in nerve endings and pleasure for women, and also very tied to female orgasm. So explore, if you haven't explored all parts of her clitoris, do that. If you haven't found and explored her G spot, do that with her consent, of course. But those are great two kind of areas to really get to know in your partner and encourage her to get to know in her self pleasure time as well. And then the last thing I would say, you asked about positions. So right, we call them female dominant positions, female forward positions, but woman on top, from behind. Interestingly enough, that doesn't put a lot of pressure on from the penis on the clitoris, but it puts more pressure on the G spot. So rear entry or from behind. And then having her sit on your lap allows for deeper pressure and more pressure on the clitoris and the G spot. So those are three positions that tend to be more intense in sensation for the woman.
First of all, thank you for showing me you pointed behind you, like I didn't know what. You're like from behind, and you moved your hand behind, like I've never done that before. I have no idea what you're talking about, Stormy. What's this behind thing you're talking about? What's that called?
My hands all the time.
You went, you put your hand like from behind, like you woman-splain doggy style to me, and I appreciate it. I do
woman-splain.
But okay, funny. I have a real question as a guy, and I know you can't answer this for all women, but okay, if a lady isn't going to have an orgasm, does she still enjoy sex?
I mean, I can't answer that for all women, but what I can say is the practice would be like in this listener's question about like really enjoying the sensation, right? Like think about, okay, let's think about it as a man, right? And I'm not a man, but I'm going to ask you, like, I'm going to guess, you don't just enjoy your moments of orgasm. You're enjoying the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And your pleasure is building, your erotic energy is building. And for men, the ejaculatory inevitability is building. Well, it's similar for women. Our tissues get engorged, right? Particularly the clitoris. We have increased blood flow. Things feel like we get more turned on, which you can also notice with like breath and sometimes with vaginal lubrication, although that's not always an indicator. But, so the turn on, I guess a long-winded way of saying it's not just the orgasm that's pleasurable, but orgasms are amazing, right? And there are so many different types of orgasm that female bodies can have, way more than male bodies, just not that it's a competition, but so it may be exploring that. Like, so for example, and I didn't say this for the listener question, but like many women can have orgasms from having their nipples stimulated, right? So maybe you're just really, perhaps the focus is on the clitoral orgasm, and that is one kind of orgasm. So yeah, I would say absolutely. But I would also say that there's been times in my life where I was really attached to my orgasm. And to me, great sex meant I had to have an orgasm. I would say absolutely not. Now at 46 years old, some of my most amazing sex, I haven't had an orgasm. So I think it's like how much we associate or attach in our minds and our bodies to orgasm.
Well, that's great. That is great. I wanted to ask that question just because I totally agree. I think sometimes guys, they ejaculate, but I don't even know if that's necessary. I mean, maybe that is considered an orgasm, but that is kind of the finishing component of sex. Whereas the rest of the sex, you might have even enjoyed more. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like,
And did you know that your ejaculation and your orgasm are not the same thing?
I didn't know that.
No. So we'll have to do a whole episode on that. And
Yeah.
all you men out there listening or watching, you can also learn to have what we call ejaculation mastery, where you can choose to ejaculate or not and still have an orgasm. It's pretty cool.
So you can be having sex and go, no, no, no.
Well, you don't, I mean, hopefully you don't know. You take
Don't do that, right?
mastery over,
Yeah.
over your breath, over your body, right?
Yeah.
It's what allows you to have sex for way longer.
Yeah.
But it's also for some men, particularly some men that I work with, they don't want to ejaculate. That feels depleting for them. They feel like they're exhausted afterwards, right? It's like the whole like ejaculate and go to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Smoke a cigarette and go to sleep, right?
Right.
So by design, by intention, not by withholding, men can actually learn to separate their ejaculation from their orgasm, and that allows you to be more powerful, to be more in autonomy. Like, it's just that physiologically they typically, like temporally, like on a timeline, they happen really close together for many men. So men have like experienced it as one experience, but it's not. So we'll have to do a
Ooh.
whole episode
Yeah,
on
we're
that.
gonna do a whole episode about that. I gotta know more about that. All right. Well, this has been great again. I love this. I love this podcast. It's so fun. Thank you for your listener questions. You can send in your listener questions to Toby Bad Christian at Gmail or Stormy at Love Deep Labs. Labs, plural, right?
Lab, just one
Lab.
B.
I keep blowing that one. Love Deep Lab at .com. And yeah, we would love your listener questions. We hope you're enjoying this podcast, and we will see you again very soon.